Hello, I'm the first presenter, So-hyun Choi of Group 1. Thanks to our Vietnamese member, we researched about Vietnam. As for the table of contents, we have 4 parts. At first, Vietnam's economy, and second, trade law, third, export goods, and finally, trade with other countries in order. If you look at the graph on the right, Vietnam's economic growth rate for 2019 was 7%. The growth rate has remained above 7% since 2008, following the peak economic growth in 2018. In 2019, Vietnam's agriculture and fisheries sector grew 2 points, the industrial and construction sectors 9% almost, and the service sector grew 73%. Each sector contributed 4.6% and 50.4% and 45% to Vietnam's economic growth. Vietnam continues to maintain a stable price trend for economic growth. Next, let's look at the characteristics of the Vietnamese market into geography, population, and consumer markets. Vietnam is located at the beginning of Southeast Asia countries, and it's a strategic location to connect Southeast Asia. It has geographical characteristics that it serves as a gateway to export and import of ASEAN markets by connecting China, Cambodia, and Laos. Next is population. Vietnam has a population of 93 million, ranking 5th in the world. That's close to 100 million. Vietnam's population is expected to exceed 100 million by 2025. And Vietnam has a population structure that has many young age groups. At the same time, it also has the characteristics of low-wage workforce. Vietnam has a thicker productive population entering the golden age of population, where the working population between the ages of 15 to 65 accounts for about 70% of the total population. But the wage level in Vietnam's labor force is less than half that of China. The average monthly salary for Vietnamese manufacturing workers is 235, more than 3 times lower than that of China. China is 744. This young, cheap labor are a large productive population, and the advantages of entering the ASEAN market are drawing attention as the second production base to replace China. Let's look at the consumer market and the policy of opening up to the outside world. Vietnam has rapidly grown its domestic market due to increased income levels and rapid urbanization. In addition, they have been actively promoting their open door policy and have engaged in bilateral and multilateral free trade with various countries. And South Korea expects to utilize Vietnam's diverse network to expand its exports to ASEAN and EU countries. Next is Vietnam trade law. First, if you look at the status of import regulation on Korea, there's no current anti-dumping, countervailing duty, safeguard, import quota. Next is import banned items. Vietnam rules out prohibited items by law to protect its own policies and certain goods. Items include military technical equipment such as weapons, explosives, etc., sky lantern related devices, chemicals according to specific laws, used consumer goods, medical equipment, and vehicles. cultural properties subject to prohibition of distribution, use IT equipment, publications, like that. Vietnam's non-tariff measures are up from the past. Vietnam's non-tariff measures increased 45% from 527 in 2015 to 764 in 2018. By type, technical barriers to trade, export-related measures, plant and animal quarantine inspection measures, and quantitative restrictions and price controls have a high proportion. Vietnam's tariff system includes preferential rates, special preferential rates, and ordinary rates. First, preferential rates are applied to imports from countries where the most favored country is treated in trade relations with Vietnam, or goods that are imported from the free trade zone into the domestic market by the most favored nation. The second, special preferential rates is applied to imported goods native to a country that has a preferential tariff agreement, such as an FTA with Vietnam, or the goods imported from the free trade zone into the domestic market by the country of origin in the preferential tariff agreement relationship with Vietnam. The last ordinary rate is the tariff rate applied to imports that are not subject to preferential or preferential tariff rates. Vietnam sets 150% of the preferential tariff rate applied to each item as the general tariff rate. For items with a preferential tariff rate of 0%, the government prime minister shall make a decision based on the principle of levying the tariff rate as stipulated in Article 10 of the Import. Next is the country of origin notation. These days, Vietnam is strengthening the verification of origin marks for Chinese products. The trade dispute between the US and China has raised concerns that Chinese goods, to avoid high tariffs, have been exported to Vietnam by way and re-exported to the US. So in a statement in 2019, Vietnam's General Administration of Customs says it will significantly strengthen the verification of origin labeling and violations of imported goods from China. Part 3 and 4 will be delivered by next presenter. I'd like to hand over Dayun. Thank you.
Hi, I'm second presenter Da Yun Jeon. Now I'm going to talk about exports and trade with US. According to statistics of General Department of Vietnam Customs, combined export values of 10 key products reached $96.83 US. Here's the 10 key export products so far. First, phone for cellular networks or other wireless network. Mobile phones have emerged as Vietnam's main export product. Second, processor and controller. Third, sports footwear for transmit and receive equipment. Other features include agricultural and fisheries products such as rice, coffee, cashew, and pepper shrimp are also considered major export items for Vietnam. Vietnam's imports are centered on various machinery and plants and components, petrochemical products, steel products, raw materials, and various parts for the production of finished goods, which are required in the industrial stage. In addition, Vietnam's high export growth rate and the relatively weak parts and material industries are encouraging imports of raw materials. Imports of these items are expected to continue to increase in the future, along with progress in industrialization of Vietnam. full-fledged implementation of AFTA tariffs, easing import barriers after joining the WTO, and signing bilateral and multilateral free trade agreements. In terms of an export in international trade between Vietnam and other countries, the United States is becoming the largest nation with 19.3%. Now I'm going to focus on the main trading partner, the US. Cooperation with Vietnam and United States. The US is building a close political partnership with Vietnam through the bilateral trade agreement, signed in 2001, and Vietnam's WTO accession in 2007, and is striving to enhance transparency in the local financial sector, service market, administrative, and legal use through the conclusion of the bilateral trade and investment consultation in June of the same year, and the recent rapid development of relations ahead of the expansion of the U.S. corporate investment in Vietnam and the bilateral agreement. Vietnam joined the WTO as of November-January 2007 as the 105th member of the services into the Vietnam's market, improve transparency in trade practice, promote economic freedom, and ensure equal competition between domestic and foreign companies. Vietnam is currently the 43rd largest trading partner of the U.S. The U.S. has been under such criticism as trade imbalances with Vietnam have deteriorated sharply since 2018. Vietnam is the target of the Trump administration due to its growing trade surplus with the U.S. One of the biggest trade markets, Bloomberg reported Monday. In this regard, U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer said Vietnam should reduce its trade surplus with the U.S. In an effort to reduce the widening trade surplus, Vietnam has signed 18 agreements over the next 2 to 3 years to buy US $3 billion worth of agricultural products from the US. In conclusion, the US is building a close political partnership with Vietnam through the bilateral trade agreement signed in 2001 and Vietnam WTO accession since 2007. Here's our sources and references. This is the end of Group 1 presentation. If you have any question, let us know and keep in touch with this email address. Thank you for listening.